Okay, hey everybody, welcome to Business Computing Weekly. This is episode number 339, recorded November the 6th, 2011. And we are sponsored by Frugal Brothers Software, America's leading provider for GFI software. And also we are sponsored by GFI Software. You can learn more about our products by visiting frugalbrothers.com. Always enjoy talking to business people about the best in antivirus software, email protection, network security software. Thank you so much for joining us today on the return of Business Computing Weekly. As I said, this is episode number 339, and just so glad everybody could take time out of their day to stop by and visit with us. So the Small Business Computing is a show that we put on to talk about what's going out in the IT world, in the business community, what's happening out there. And we hope that you enjoy what we're doing. And we decided that Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is a good time for us to be doing this show. I'm glad that you can hear it. Also, I want to let everybody know you can catch us on iTunes. The show's available there, both video and audio format as well. And we're also on, we post these episodes to YouTube. We post them to blip.tv as well. Also Vimeo. So there's a lot of different ways that you can catch the pre-recorded programs. Just to do some updates for you real quick. Some of you might be familiar with this, some of you may not be, but we've had a real problem with our broadband connection that's been going on all summer long. And we have an account with Mediacom. It's a 20 megabit down and 1.5 megabit up connection. The problem is it is cable, and therefore we are on a oversaturated server here in our town, in our community. We're talking almost 100% saturation. So at night, actually by late afternoon, starting in the evening, the downstream begins slipping until literally it becomes unusable. And that's just not a good situation to be in. And I kind of had a go around back in June, I believe it was, with our provider on Twitter. And it got kind of intense, and a lot of people come to my assistance, and I appreciate their efforts very much. And Mediacom basically felt the pressure, I guess, to resolve the situation. And I can now report to you, going on 5 months now, that, maybe 4, maybe it was July, but I was thinking it was June, that we are now scheduled within the next 2 weeks to finally have this issue addressed. And I spent some time on the phone with several managers at Mediacom who basically gave me this explanation. They said that when the network was designed, in no way, shape, or form did they anticipate that Netflix would be taking 32% of the traffic on the internet. Now I.P.O. Go apparently is causing them some problems. So they didn't design their network in anticipation of a lot of streaming video. That is their main complaint, that the network wasn't designed to handle streaming video. But now they're starting to try to cope with that and play catch up. And being that we're located in a smaller community, we tend to be kind of the last kids on the block that gets shown the love, so to speak. We are the last ones on the block. But hopefully within the next 2 weeks I can report back to you that at least that it's usable in the evening. We're talking, I've seen the downstream go I've seen it as high in the morning hours. It was around 22, 23 megabits per second. This is based on tests done with speedtest.net. By evening, drop down to under 100K. So you can see that's, things like even trying to watch a YouTube video or Netflix, anything is pretty much out of the question in those kind of speeds. So hopefully we're getting up to speed on that. Also, I do a lot of calls. I'm in sales. That's what I do. And I spend a lot of time on the phone. And I decided to make better use of Skype to make my outbound calls. I've got the Skype premium account. I've added unlimited outbound calling as well as getting a inbound number as well. But I had to have a good set of headphones to make it worthwhile and make it all work. And generally I buy Logitech equipment, and this time around was no exception. I actually purchased, at a recommendation of a good friend of mine, the Logitech G930 headphones. Logitech G930s. And those are a really, basically they are designed to be a gaming headphone. I'm going to go ahead and hold these up to the camera. Well, let's leave it on its charger. But here they are. You can see they actually go over the ear. So they're very comfortable. You don't feel that pressure against your ear because your ear actually fits inside of it. They're not extremely light, but they don't feel cheap and plasticky, is the expression I use. And it has 3 programmable buttons. Actually, there's 3 programmable buttons at the top, which you may not be able to see too well. A volume control on this side, as well as power, and there's a button on the back side of the left earphone that can switch it, because the phone can handle up to 7.1 surround sound. But it takes special software, and it only works in Windows. Now, as you all know, I'm pretty much use a Mac Pro for my day-to-day work. It does work without the installation of any drivers in a very basic mode. You can adjust the volume. That works. Raising and lowering the boom will also mute the microphone, so that's good. As well as the 3 buttons at the top will operate iTunes. And that is what you're going to get out of the box with this. Now, you can use a combination of Audio Hijack Pro and Apple Script. You can actually add quite a bit of functionality back to this device, but it's always going to be stereo. You're never going to get surround sound with this device. But in Windows, that's where this thing is going to shine, especially in gaming, up to 7.1 surround. A lot of different effects with it. Now, I use Boot Camp in order to play some games, particularly some of the first-person shooters out there. Black Ops is one of the games I play. Now, I haven't tried the surround sound on that, and that's something I hope to do this afternoon. But for overall productivity, to sit there all day long and make calls on Skype, this is a fantastic headset. One thing I was concerned about was heat. Just wearing, how warm would these get? It's not bad. I've actually had a lot worse headphones, but they are pretty comfortable. Here's a couple other killer things about these headphones. One is battery life. The battery life on this is rated up to 10 hours of talk time on these headphones. In the real world, you can expect after a few times you're going to be down to about 4 hours. What's nice about these headphones is that you can plug it into this charger and continue to use them. And so I leave it plugged into my charger all day. I leave it plugged in, and we're able to use them at that point. So that's a real nice feature of these headphones, is the battery life is actually quite good. The second thing is the range, the distance that you can walk around with these things. And I've had no difficulty being up to about 40 feet away from the base and continue to receive good sound. I will tell you, I do have one issue with them, and that is I get some interference with the microwave of it. And you may also want to consider, if you're using a wireless network, you may also want to make sure that you're not conflicting with the radio frequency that these operate on. But I've had no problems with that personally. So they're a great Tom Max joins us in the chat room, says microwaves are bad. Yeah, when the popcorn is ready, I know, because whoever I'm talking to gets cut out until I turn it off. But that is the Logitech G930. It's a welcome addition. They cost about $130. I bought mine on Amazon. The actual lowest price was at Tiger Direct, but CompUSA, which is some stores that Tiger Direct actually purchased and left open, but they don't have too many of those around there. So Amazon was about the best deal in getting this headset. So I'm pretty pleased with that. As I said, I use Boot Camp with my Mac Pro in order to play games, predominantly play games. Also, I've used Parallel 7. That's a new addition here at the office. We purchased that and we actually use our Boot Camp drive as a virtual machine, which is nice. The other day, I booted into Windows, and within the hour, I got a really hard system freeze. I suspect it's not a perfect environment with Boot Camp and Windows, because you have to rely on Apple drivers to run various devices on the hardware. I think sometimes that's a problem. So, you know, Boot Camp is great if you're going to be in Windows for a limited time, but it does appear the longer you're loaded up and running in Windows 7 natively, the more likely you may experience some type of crash or something like that based on a bad Apple driver. Tom Max shudders at running Windows on your iMac. Well, for me, because I do have a Mac Pro workstation, and it makes sense for me to have Windows running basically in a virtual machine, which, by the way, behaves itself beautifully. Parallel 7, by the way, I'm going to give it a really big thumbs up. It's fast. It works great. Initially, when they first released it, there was a problem using the full screen with it in Lion, but that since has been addressed. And I run 2 VMs at a time, Ubuntu and also Windows 7, and that's worked out really well for us. Tom prefers VirtualBox, and VirtualBox is very, very good. I happen to like Parallels and VMware. However, on Windows, if I'm doing virtual machines, I like VirtualBox. So either way, whatever floats your boat, I just happen to be a fan of that. Let's get on to some of the topics of the show today. And the first thing is, it's a big happy 10th birthday to Microsoft Windows XP. Can you believe it? This is the operating system that absolutely will not die. It is still around, folks. It is really, really amazing. And guess what? Microsoft is not celebrating the 10th birthday of Windows XP. And they're kind of scratching their heads going, we just don't understand why people are still using XP. First, I want to say this. Pity the poor corporate drone out there who gets assigned a big, black, ugly laptop running XP with Internet Explorer version 6 on it and a dated copy of Office 2003 or 2007 and expect to be productive in this day and age. It's I shudder to think of that experience. But unfortunately, millions of people are doing that very thing. Yet Microsoft and computer manufacturers, even software companies, are scratching their head going, why is this? Why is this happening? Why will Microsoft XP not go away? And there's actually a number of reasons why it's still around. And the first thing is, a lot of businesses are very invested in either doing some custom apps that work only with XP, or they've locked down the system so tightly with XP they don't want to make the move. They were going to make the move maybe when Vista came out. That was a pretty horrible experience. I think some of us will agree, at least initially when Vista was released. Microsoft, to their credit, did fix Vista, by the way. But by that time, the damage had been done to the Vista name. So that is one reason why. You've also got a large number of people that say, well, I can still get modern software, utilities and applications that still run on XP. Still runs on my old hardware. I see no compelling reason to upgrade and spend the money. So you've got a number of people out there either can't afford a new computer to run Windows 7, or they don't want to spend the money for an upgrade. They have their reasons, and they just want to hang on to it. Good point. Tom Mack in the chat room points out there is a lot of software and websites that don't run well on Windows 7 or IE9. IE9 is, I think, one of the few pieces of Microsoft software that will not run on XP. But all your other modern browsers, Firefox, Chrome, all that runs on XP. And that's a problem. This gives people a reason to continue to run XP and not do an upgrade. So so it's not as a simple matter out there. I got to tell you, just last week I did a demo for Google Apps, and the folks in this is a graphic shop, many of whom are still using XP on their laptops. They're still using XP, and this is kind of a more high-tech business, but they're still using XP. That's what they know. That's what they like. They don't see anything really compelling to make them make that switch. And of course, we're only about a year away now from the introduction of Windows 8. Only about a year away, but we got millions of companies out there still using XP. They didn't go to Vista. They didn't go to Windows 7. Don't know if they're going to make it to Windows 8 or not. I guess it's going to take some efforts of software companies to say, you know what, after a certain date, we're not going to support XP anymore. But right now, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you don't. If you're writing some application that you want to sell at the Windows market, you've got to support XP because so many users still have it every day. Welcome, Cirrus Minor, to the chat room. Thanks for stopping by this afternoon. The 10th anniversary of Windows XP is still around, still kicking. Microsoft wants it to die. But yet millions of people still use it every day, and still no sign that it's going to go away anytime in the future. Absolutely crazy. Moving right along, I think this is kind of interesting. By the way, this is not in the show notes, but is anybody familiar with Zenith Infotech out there? If you've ever heard of Zenith Infotech, they do a couple things. Zenith Infotech is a managed services provider that they outsource managed services for a lot of companies, especially computer consultants and IT firms will work with Zenith Infotech. And part of their offerings is also what they call BDR, backup and data recovery service that they offer. And they're very, very aggressive in their marketing. By the way, they buy lots of advertising and trade papers and magazines and so forth. So why am I mentioning them? Because they just defaulted on a $32 million bond, and actually the bondholder says no, it's twice that amount of money. Apparently, by all signs I'm seeing, Zenith Infotech in dire financial straits. Lots of computer consultants and resellers use their services and have resold them to their clients, and also have their BDR solution installed on clients' premises. This thing could get really ugly, folks. If you have a major player in the managed services space go down because of financial mismanagement, that could be a big, big problem for a lot of consultants out there. And there are other companies that are already emailing these consultants to get their business, to win them away from Zenith Infotech. That's kind of a scary thing. Now, that leads me to this story about Groupon. Now, Groupon is the website that uses opt-in mailing lists, email lists, to market deals of the day in local area businesses, or local businesses, etc. They just went public. They raised $700 million in their I.P.O. That's initial public offering. Well, here's what's really interesting about Groupon is that there's still no clear way as how they're going to make money. Their business plan is flaky at best. at best, as far as especially long-term revenue, because you know what? They have to spend lots and lots of money to keep signing up new people into their opt-in list. They're spending a lot of money to get customers. It appears that Groupon may have some explaining to do on their financials. Just exactly were they completely upfront in their accounting before their IPO? That's kind of an interesting point. But here's something else I just caught my eye. For every dollar that they have in the bank, apparently they owe $2 to their creditors. So they're saying that this $700 million they raised in their initial public offering is not money that they need to get to use. The books, however, are saying something else. In fact, a headline caught my eye yesterday that said if this IPO hadn't went down, Groupon was on its way of filing a bankruptcy. That's kind of scary. I can't imagine that this IPO went down like it did. I'm predicting that we will see a crash and burn for the people that bought the stock. I think we're going to see an ugly situation arise out of Groupon in the near future. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I don't think that Groupon has a sound business plan. They spend too much money acquiring people. I think for the most part their marketing goes ignored and into people's spam folders. I just don't see where this is a viable long-term business. I think that the I.P.O. was based more on people trying to make a quick profit, such as day traders and that kind of thing. The real meat and potatoes will be fleshed out in the next few weeks. I think you're going to see the stock price plummet like a rock. This company, I don't believe, will be long for the world. Found that kind of interesting. How about another company, tech company, that's having some financial problems? That's AMD. Now I think most of us are pretty familiar with AMD. Their heyday was when they introduced the Athlon processor, when Intel was not innovating like they should have with their Pentium processor line. And they come out, if we recall, the Athlon 64-bit processors. They were seen as a great alternative to Intel. That was their heyday. But Intel kind of turned things around, and AMD is kind of taking a back seat. They acquired ATI, that is AMD company. I don't know if people realize this or not, but actually AMD no longer manufactures the hardware. They actually sold off the manufacturing to a company called Global Foundry, which is based out of Dubai. I believe that's where it's based out of. So they really don't build anything anymore. What they do are they're chip designers. And they've been having some hard times lately, ATI. They just released their newest version of the processor line called Bulldozer. The Bulldozer chips are not receiving sterling reviews in the PC magazines at all. They don't offer the value and the performance of the Intel Sandy Bridge line of multi-core processors, particularly in the way that they deal with single-threaded applications in a multi-core environment. Apparently the Sandy Bridge just smokes these guys in performance. So what they've been trying to do is base their value on price. When you can get an 8-core microprocessor for $245 on the surface, that sounds like an incredible deal. The one technology that does, I think, helps AMD more than anything is their Eyefinity technology and what they're doing with the ATI business, especially looking at their new FirePro V4900 series graphics cards. I think an impressive card for under $200. Good basic workstation type card. Supports 3 displays simultaneously. Supports OpenGL, DirectX 11. So It's a lower dollar gaming card, or not really a gaming card, but a workstation card, I think is what they classified as. But it's got respectable specs. I think they're doing really, really well in the video card business. It's the damn processors they're having a problem with. And Intel continues to smoke AMD. But if you're looking to build, roll your own PC using those processors, then you're not going to get the performance to the price that you're going to get out of Intel. And so AMD is cutting back 10% of their workforce, and that's across the board, in order to become profitable again. So they're losing money out there, folks. They got a ways to go, AMD. I like the bulldozer chips. I think it's for somebody trying to do something on a budget, it's certainly worth considering. But for a little bit more money, I think you're going to get a whole lot better processor out of Intel. Uncle Al says that the Phenom 2s were a good deal. I have one. Yeah, the Phenom 2s were a good deal. The Athlons were at their time. The Bulldozer, not so much, and that's what they're pinning their hopes on. Perhaps maybe they need to sell that chip business off and stick with just ATI. What do you think? Is that what AMD should do? I've got some concerns for them. I love the fact there's a major competitor, Intel, that gives us a choice. But are they doing the right thing? Are they doing a good job with it? Are they blowing it? I mean, I just don't know. Tell you what, we'll be right back after this brief word from our sponsor.
GFI Software provides a single source for networking, security, monitoring, and hosted IT solutions for small to medium enterprises. GFI's extensive suite of award-winning on-premise solutions includes anti-spam, email security, email archiving, endpoint antivirus, centrally managed backup, event log management, server-based faxing, network monitoring, removable device control, vulnerability scanning and patch management, and web filtering and security. GFI also offers a suite of hosted solutions including email security and continuity, frontline email defense, and monitoring and remote management. With award-winning technology, an aggressive pricing strategy, and a strong focus on the unique requirements of small to medium-sized enterprises, GFI Software can satisfy your needs on a global scale. Please visit us online at www.gfi.com.
And we're back, and this is an interesting story this last week. Apple gave its key executives $400 million in bonuses. It's a heck of a lot of money. Basically, there was, I believe, 6 senior vice presidents. Oh, no, my apologies. More than that. There is 9 senior VPs who received over 150,000 shares of Apple stock each in order to stay on. Now, they don't get the stock right away. Understand that. They vest over time. So, for example, if you got the stock right now, it will vest about 75% of it will vest by September of 2016. So, like 5 years from now. So this is the way to keep here's what Apple's trying to do, and it makes perfectly good sense. They've got a stellar executive team in place. Scott Forstall, Johnny Ive, Bob Mansfield, Phil Schiller. These guys are really excellent at what they do. They don't want them to go anywhere. They want to keep Apple as a whole unit because everybody functions well. Oh, except Scott Forstall. He kind of marches to his own drummer, doesn't he? If you've read some of the recent things about the guy out there. Also, Johnny Ive. I mean, Johnny Ive's been credited as being the soulmate of Steve Jobs. I don't know. You want to keep these guys around. You want to keep them happy. And the way to do that is to keep them there by fully vesting them in time over the stock. So Apple took $400 million. That's 1 million shares. Like Tim Cook was awarded 1 million shares not too long ago to stay on, which is worth $400 million at current stock prices. They awarded another $400 million worth of stock at current prices to their it is 6 Apple senior VPs. That's a whole lot of money. And it's enough, I think, to keep these guys hanging around, keeping Apple competitive without a massive, without some of their top talent defecting to other companies out there. I think it was a smart move on Apple's case. What's your thoughts in the chat room? I'd like to know. You think that they should have given these guys this kind of money, 150,000 shares of Apple stock, in order to keep them around or not? Is that a good idea? Personally, I think it makes perfect business sense. Keep them there. Keep them waiting for that stock to vest. Hopefully they're going to keep innovating, making some great products that we all like. Looking in the chat room, there's some talk about from Tom Mack and Uncle Al. Tom Mack says the AMDs are bad chips, at least that's what he heard. How could an 8-core CPU be beaten by a quad-core? Here's the answer, Tom. It's got to do with threading of applications. Apparently, the AMD, especially this new Bulldozer chip, does not handle single-threaded applications, even with 8 cores, better than the Sandy Bridge quad-core with hyper-threading. Therefore, the Sandy Bridge is running those threads a lot more efficiently than throwing 8 cores at the AMD chip, and thus resulting in a performance hit. That is the understanding that I have received on that. And that is where the problem lies with the Bulldozer processors. Tom X says, I have rarely seen any AMD machines at any place I have worked. I think that the AMD processors tend to show up on, well, I know that like the big computers, the high performance computing, like the one at the nuclear laboratory, they've used AMD processors on that. I think there's big server farms that use AMD processors, and it's also kind of a hobbyist processor. You do see some mainstream manufacturers able to offer a little bit lower, because they'll have like a higher end machine with Intel, like an i7, and they'll offer another machine with the same exact number but using an AMD processor. They have good price points. That's exactly what it's about. But there comes a point where you spend a little bit of money and you get radically better performance. So it's suddenly not going to be. I think what all the computer pundits are saying is that these Bulldozer chips that AMD was really pinning its hopes on are not going to pan out in the marketplace like they hoped. There's a discussion going back and forth between Tom Mack and Uncle Al on why doesn't Apple use AMD. Because they're obviously looking at what they consider. Now, Apple, though, looks, Tom, they also look at how fast the company updates its processors. I mean, they look at several factors when and they want to be, obviously they want to be with the company long term. And so they want to look at what the product roadmap is for the Intel versus AMD as well. So I think that's what's going on there. And finally, the Mac Pro. It's been reported on a lot of different websites. The Mac Pro has not been updated, I think, since around June of 2010. Everything else has. Every other part of the Apple product line has been updated except one, a glaring obvious omission, and that is the Mac Pro. Why is that? Well, recently I've seen a pie chart, and it took Apple's revenue and divided it up into 4 different spots. About 26% of Apple's revenue last quarter came from the sale of Macs. Now, of that 25% of their total revenue, over 70% of that was laptops. So about 30% of the remainder was desktops. There's 3 desktop models: the Mac Mini, the iMac, and the Mac Pro. Apple doesn't separate the 3 when they report. They don't say, okay, so much was Mac Mini, so much was... They just lump them together in one category. But the scuttlebutt is that Apple executives are saying that the Mac Pro line is not profitable. We don't sell enough of them to warrant a refresh of the product. It's just something we're not doing a lot with. Okay. That may very well be true. They are expensive machines to purchase. I think the entry-level Mac Pro is about $2,500. Get you into the dance, and then it's just up from there. And you can, put a whole heck of a lot of money into a Mac Pro. I happen to have a Mac Pro. I have some friends that have Mac Pros. They are a workstation. And this is what I think people have to understand. Especially if you start comparing price when you go to buy a PC versus a Mac Pro. When you go to a website like Dell, don't look at their Optiplex and all those lines of computers. You have to go and look at their workstations and start configuring them. And suddenly, the Mac Pro becomes pretty competitive on the price because they use a server class motherboard, processors, error correcting memory, the whole 9 yards. So they're building a workstation class machine, not a desktop PC, and that's when you're comparing apples to apples, that's what you have to do. So yeah, everybody gets hung up on the acquisition cost, but if you, like I said, if you go to, excuse me, if you go to Dell, for example, which I did just the other night, and started configuring a workstation, guess what? $2,500 is also about the starting point on their workstation class machines with server class motherboards, Xeon processors, etc. Error correcting triple, was it ECC memory. They start in that ballpark, and they don't ship with a lot of memory, 4 to 6 gigabytes of RAM, etc. And they're easily pricing $2,500, $3,000 or more. Okay. We know there's a market for these machines. We know there's a market for the Mac Pros. Apple is concentrating on laptops. And then the iMac is what their two top sellers are in their machines. 70% of their Mac sales are laptops. That's what's going to get the love. When I've been going around reading what people's got to say about the Mac Pro. And people that have them are pretty upset that the line may be discontinued. And here's one of the reasons. Displays. They don't want a higher powered iMac because they don't want to use the Apple displays. They've already spent a lot of money on displays. Why should they have to turn around and use the display, the iMac display, or pay for an iMac with that display? Number two, iMacs tend to get a little hot. They'd get a little bit hot. Mac Pros obviously are more expandable. Maybe Thunderbolt will solve some of these problems. Maybe not. Maybe not. What people are clamoring for, whatever your position on the Mac Pro is, here's what people are really clamoring for. They're clamoring for a Macintosh that is a mid-sized tower, because let's face it, the Mac Pro is a big, heavy computer. I kid you not, the things are tanks. Very heavy. But they're looking for a mid-sized tower computer. They're looking for, and I think most people would be happy with a processor, say like the new i7 2920MX, or XM, I'm sorry, 2920XM, which is a Intel i7 Extreme. They want it to ship with at least 8 gigs of memory, and they want a decent video card in it. I think most people would be happy, and Thunderbolt, as well as SSD option in it, and price it under $2,000. I think these things would really move off the shelf for Apple. Oh my God, is he attacking my iMac again? I am not. No. I'm not attacking iMacs. They're a great machine for consumers. I don't see them as a pro level machine. If you're doing lots of video, in other words, I don't see the sense in taking the iMac and then having a special beefed up version of the iMac. It's a consumer grade machine. That's what it is. This is what it was designed to be. Okay, just no more than you know as well as I do. The Mac Mini, I don't care if you put Lion server on it. It is not a server class machine. The Mac Mini is not a server. The iMac is not a professional level workstation. It is what it is. It's good at what it does. Okay. Yes, it kicks ass. I get it, i7, but it's still not a workstation class machine. And what people that do a lot of heavy duty video and audio rendering, that kind of thing, they're clamoring for a workstation class machine. And Apple should give it to them. And I think that if they come up with a workstation under $2,000, at least give us a more high performance version of the iMac sans monitor at a decent price point, they would do well. But yes, the Mac Pro's days does appear to be limited and maybe even over. Maybe Apple will fool us. You know, they are due for a full refresh, supposedly, of all their product lines in 2012. And maybe they may surprise us with yet another iteration of the Mac Pro. But it's looking very, very doubtful at this point in time. Workstation equals AutoCAD, right? Just what is a workstation? Fair question. I'll give you my opinion. And my opinion is this is going to be well constructed, is going to have server class motherboard, microprocessor, you know, things like should come with RAID, which unfortunately the Mac Pro, I never did understand why they didn't build in RAID in the Mac Pro. Error correcting memory, just to name a few. It is you're right. People use AutoCAD on it and things like that. These machines are tended and designed to take a beating. Really beating. You know, they run, heavy duty applications and projects on them. Apple needs to have one in their product line. They shouldn't be abandoning their core audience. User base on that, which is going to be graphics artists use them, filmmakers use them. Gosh, you know what? I use one. I mean, I really don't need per se a Mac Pro, but I tell you what, when you're running a virtual, like right now, I'm running a virtual machine. I'm recording the disk. I'm encoding on Wirecast, all simultaneously. It's a nice thing to have. Nothing to say anything wrong with the i7. I think if you gave the Mac, at least gave us the option to get an iMac, not an iMac, but a Mac with a really potent Core i7, again, the i7 Extreme. Give us a decent video card in there, Thunderbolt SSD. Let us pick our own monitor, our own displays. I think that would make the preponderance of people happy. That's my opinion. But as it stands right now, I think the Mac Pro is cooked right now. And that concludes this week's edition of Business Computing Weekly. Really appreciate everybody coming by and hanging out with us this afternoon. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll see you next Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.